Hi, my name is Lorelei Weimer, and I am the niece of Marilyn Laszlo and Shirley Killosky, and I also work with Laszlo Mission League. I am so thankful that you have taken the time to watch this presentation. This is one of the long presentations that I do for churches. It's about 40 minutes long. It will be a little bit longer today because I do have a few extra slides that are specifically for people that are supporting Laszlo Mission League. Now, this presentation is important because it tells the full story of the work that has taken place in Hauna and the East Sepik River province that started nearly 60 years ago with my aunts. It also talks about who Laszlo Mission League is and the work we are doing in Hauna and that region today. So again, thank you so much for taking this journey with me. So Marilyn and Shirley's journey actually starts in 1917 with a man by the name of William Cameron Townsend. Now, William was a missionary in Guatemala, and he would go from village to village passing out Spanish Bibles. Well, he gets to this village, and they said to him, "We don't speak Spanish and we don't read Spanish. So why are you giving us this Bible?" And then they said something profound. They said, "Why doesn't your God speak our language?" Well, as you and I know, God created all the languages and he knows every language in the world. And so William moved in to their village, learned their language, and translated the Bible into their language. Well, from there, he went on to create the Summer Institute of Linguistics, known as SIL, which trains other missionaries to do what he did and become Bible translators. He then also created Wycliffe Bible Translators, which is the largest Bible translation organization in the world. There are 7,300 languages globally, and 801 still need a Bible in their native heart language. Now let's fast forward to 1933, and that's the year my Aunt Marilyn Laszlo was born. And a year later, in 1934, my Aunt Shirley was born. Now they're born and raised in Northwest Indiana on a small farm in Liberty Township, just right outside of Chicago. This is the church that they attended as a family. It's called Crocker Bible Baptist Church, and it still stands today. Now, when Marilyn was 12 years old, she vividly remembers hearing her first missionary talk about that there are people all over the world who have never heard about Jesus, which shocked Marilyn. She remembers going home that day and sitting on my grandpa's tractor and prayed, "Lord, when I get big, can I tell others about Jesus?" Well, the Lord didn't forget that prayer, but he didn't call her to the field until 1965. Marilyn joined Wycliffe Bible Translators, and she was sent to the other side of the world to a country called Papua New Guinea. It's just north of Australia on an island, and the eastern part of that island is Papua New Guinea. In that country alone, there are 840 distinct languages. Now, this is Hauna Village in 2013. There's a couple of buildings that have steel roofs on it, but besides that, this is what the village would have looked like in 1968 when Marilyn first arrived with her first translation partner, Judy Rayberg. Now, keep in mind, they're coming into the Sepik language. They know English. They do not know the Sepik language, and this is what the people would have been speaking. Now, Marilyn's job was to learn the language, develop an alphabet, and then translate that language into the New Testament. It was one project that was going to take over 20 years to complete. Now, about 5 years into living in Hauna, Judy took another assignment and left. And Marilyn needed another partner. So in 1979, Marilyn asked her sister Shirley to join her. Shirley was 40 years old. She was a divorcee. She had 3 young adult children, and she was a full-time teacher. She took a 1-year sabbatical to help Marilyn. That 1-year sabbatical ended up turning into 40 years in Hauna. Now, Shirley was also trained in translation, and she ran the literacy program. She taught the people how to read and write their own language. Now, Hauna Village is located in the swamps of Papua New Guinea, and the conditions are harsh. It's 250 miles south of the equator. The average temperature can be from anywhere from 100 to 120 degrees and 100% humidity. The Sepik River is filled with crocodiles. The trees are filled with python snakes. There are wild boars, mosquitoes, rats, and many other types of insects. Because of the mosquitoes, it is a malaria-infested area. Now, this is a typical house. It stands on stilts because 6 months out of the year, the river floods. And usually a house like this will have maybe 2 to 3 to 4 different families that are living here. Canoes are a lifeline for them. They do everything by canoes. And when I was there in March of 2025, I spent a lot of time on the river and I was just amazed as to the amount of goods they transport on the river. Now, when I was there in March, I wanted to meet Silas. And Silas was one of the original translators of the Bible, and not many of them were still around. Many of them had passed. And so Silas and the people that lived, or the families that lived in his house, were at their camp. And they go to these camps that are outside of Hauna to do multiple things. First of all, to build canoes. They also grow their gardens, which are those times of year where they can grow extra food and eat something different than their normal diet. So this is Silas with his family at his camp. Now, in this picture, you may not be able to see it all, but there are 3 canoes that are actually being built here. They will then take those canoes and bring them back into Hauna Village where they will cook them. And cooking them, they put them through fire, and that will preserve them so they will last up to about 8 to 10 years. Now, this is when I was telling you that they transport a lot of different goods with the canoes. This is a couple with their child, and they're taking these logs back to Hauna. Here's another lady that has 2 kids. I never noticed at first that she has a small child in her lap, and then she has a child at the end of the canoe. And this is firewood that she's taking back. And in fact, I'm surprised it doesn't sink because there's so much firewood. This is another lady, and she's bringing something that's really critical back to Hauna, and that is a sago palm tree. Now, what's going to happen? She'll bring this back. She'll put it under the house if it's not flooded. They will then open up that sago palm tree, and then they will start to shred it. And then they're going to cut it even finer. Then once this process is done, they're going to take it to the river and they're going to pour water over it. And what they're trying to get is they're trying to get a liquid starch that's going to come out of that. After that, they will pour hot water on it and stir it, and then it will become a paste. They take the paste and put it in a banana leaf and wrap up the banana leaf. And that is one of their main food sources, sago paste, and they'll normally eat it with a fish. And this is a very filling food, but it has no nutritional value whatsoever. Now, this lady is standing in her garden. It's a lot of work to build a garden and to grow a garden, and you're working against the elements. So there's 4 things that they're going up against. First of all, they're going up against soils that are depleted of nutrients because of the flooding. They're going up against flooding. They're going up against wild boars wanting to get in and eat the food, and they're also going up against insects. Now, this is one garden that they have put up a fence, and this is to prevent the wild boars from getting into their garden. Now, unfortunately, when I was there in March of 25, the floods came back and the rains came back, and people are devastated because they put in all this hard work to grow these gardens, and just like that, with some rains, it's over and they've lost their gardens. They're devastated because they look forward to having different food from sago paste and fish. Now, I'm driving, I'm in a boat, and I'm going to go visit Silas and his wife. And as we're in the boat, I see these dogs on these platforms. And what happened is the man who owns these dogs, his land is flooded. There's no place for these dogs to go, so they're on these platforms. And I said to one of the guys, I said, the dogs are just going to stay there for days after days. And he said, no, they'll get tired and they're going to jump in the river. They're going to swim to where there still is land. And when they get to that place, the dogs that live on that other piece of property is going to attack these dogs. So there's always dogs fighting, but it's you're just trying to survive. Now, this is a really old photo that I just recently found in Shirley's photo collection. And sometimes the flooding gets so severe that the floodwaters actually put their houses underwater. And you'll see one of the houses is completely underwater. And so there's no way the folks can continue to live in their houses during some of the bad floods. Now, this video, I took this showing you what it's like to go to school in Hauna. These are the kids that are heading off to the government school. A little bit different than what we see in the United States. Now, when I was there in 2013, I took Marilyn back for her final goodbye. Marilyn had Alzheimer's, and so we wanted to make sure she could get back to Hauna and say goodbye to the people that she loved and adored. So when we were there, they did two traditional Sing Sings and one modern Sing Sing, and so this is one of the traditional Sing Sings. Now, the next video, when Marilyn has made videos, and it is such a blessing to have these because it just gives you a little bit of glimpse of Hauna.
And I tell students that are going on short-term mission trips, and when they start bringing you food, first of all, don't ask what it is, because that'll just mess up your minds psychologically. And you don't have to eat it all, but it is a huge compliment. And not to eat it, you're rejecting their friendship. I have learned over the years, when they bring me something wrapped up in a green leaf, that's some special delicacy that they want to share with you to eat. So I'm careful in unwrapping it, and so I unwrap it very carefully. And sure enough, they're wiggling around. But see, at first, I really didn't know what these were. And later on, I was told they were flying termites. Well, I didn't know how to eat these, so I just get a hold of just a pinch. But they were all clinging to each other. I'm trying to shake it loose. I said, Lord Jesus, bless this food. You know, I'm willing to eat these all up if you're willing to keep them all down. So I dropped that long string of flying termites into my mouth, and I started chewing. And, you know, they really weren't too bad. But when my sister joined me, somebody came up to my sister with something wrapped up in a green leaf. This is her first week. What Shirley had were these big, fat, white, juicy worms or grubs that you find under dead logs in the woods. Just pop it in your mouth and just swallow it. Marilyn, I can't. Shirley finally says, well, Marilyn, you do it first. And now I could see that these grubs were way too big to swallow whole. I am going to have to chew it. So I take that big, fat, white, juicy grub and pop it in my mouth. I'm chewing. I'm smiling, acting really kind of, oh, Shirley. And it was so soft and squishy. And green juice starts roll down her eyes got as big as saucers. And I was still chewing. I said, Shirley, don't do it.
Well, one of the things that Wycliffe trained both of my aunts as missionaries is to be nurses. Not necessarily nurses, is to be able to give medical treatment. Now, the things that my aunts never wanted to be actually were nurses, but the amount of diseases were so significant in Hauna that they gave a lot of medical treatments, a lot of tropical ulcers, a lot of bacterial infections, a lot of pneumonia, and so forth. And these are just pictures of both Marilyn and Shirley giving medical help. Now, Shirley was very talented, and one of the things that she did quite a bit when she was in Hauna. She taught the people how to sew. They didn't have computers back then, but they had to type a lot of the translation work that they did. They also had to type some of the literacy books that they were creating, and so she taught the several people how to type. Shirley was also a certified teacher, and so she did have a certified high school, and so she was one of the teachers until she retired. Now, what's amazing is Shirley never knew how to play the guitar, but she is the one that taught all of those men on stage how to play guitar.
One of the interesting things is how we go about learning a language. We learn to put a symbol to every sound the vocal cords are capable of making. Because we don't know what we're going to hear, so we got to learn all the sounds, like that's 4 different vowels. So I remember the very first word I got. It says, go find 10 nouns. So the first word is, I went up to a house, and I say, house, house. And they just all stare. They have no clue why I'm doing this. The thing is, I don't know what I'm going to get. I could get the word for banging, or post, or wood, or stupid. I don't know what I'm going to get. Somebody yelled out, oh my God, oh my God. So I wrote, oh my God. And I remember when I wrote that word, I said, wow. July 1968, I had just written the first word that has ever been written in that language since the Tower of Babel. And all the languages and nations and cultures were created after the flood. And I think, wow. Well, now, keep in mind, I have to give them the Word of God in their language. I have one word in my dictionary, and I don't even know if it's a word for house. Well, there was this old man, oldest man in the village, that became pretty mesmerized by me. All he wore was a vine. That's it. He didn't bother with a gourd. He said, Oiga to om Marilyn, every day I see you walking through the village. What is it? What is it that you're carving on that banana leaf every day with that thorn? I said, Koriyagan to Yokowuni, I am carving your talk. He said, Kariyagan, my talk? You mean the words that are coming out of my mouth? You're carving on a banana leaf? So this old man who had poor eyes, we do have blindness in our village, he came up real close to my book and he says, Habungi kora tima yokuwanan. What have you carved there? What does that say? I said, Nokin, that says kara omaganami. He took his wrinkled arthritic fingers and he kept rubbing it. He says, Kariyagan. Kariyagan. That's my talk. You've carved my talk. I said, God has created all the languages in the world. And God has sent me here to give you all of God's carving in your language. Well, the very interesting thing is that very early we learned that every language in the world has a word for supreme being. And our word for supreme being, now just get this, Adi Komi Wunam, which means big Father Creator. Amazing, amazing. Shouldn't surprise us, though. This book will plug into any culture in the world. We don't have to mess up. It's all about Jesus. They need Jesus, that's it. And the rest will take care of itself. Probably the only time that I really ever felt like quitting was probably after the second or third year. And, we're really struggling to find these words and doing the translation and stuff. And I remember I was sitting under my mosquito net one night and just crying. I just got so sick of, I had malaria, 2 or 3 times already. And the heat, the humidity, the mosquito. I was just sick of the mud and the mosquitoes. And I said, Lord, I can't find these words. And I began to think, this is the most ridiculous thing that Wycliffe could ever come up with, that we could actually learn and figure out this alphabet and figure out the grammatical structure and translate the Bible in a lifetime. And, then, it just came to my mind, and that's the Lord. I created these languages. I created this culture, and it's all there. When you're doing this language, when you're trying to analyze this language, it's like a puzzle. Now, you can work a puzzle, and you're putting all these pieces together, and it gets really exciting as you see it grow. That's exactly the same thing with language. When we finally found out what a verb was and what the past tense was and the future tense, it's like it's all coming together, the little pieces. How I found the word for salvation. Somebody nearly drowned. It's like Papa God throws out his fishing net and pulls us in and rescues us. And, you just see how beautiful these languages are and how some of their words come so much closer to the Hebrew and Greek, especially when you start translating the Bible and how excited they were getting about Jesus. And when you stop and think, it is all about Jesus. We all should be excited about Jesus and what he has done for us.
Well, Marilyn finished translating the Bible in around, I think, 1990. And so when you're looking at this slide, on the left is the Bible in Sepik River, and then on the right are all the materials that Shirley had translated. So they had two different translation teams, one for the Bible and then one for all the literacy materials that they were going to need to teach people to read and write their own language. Now, let me give you a little bit of a background. So, Marilyn and Shirley started off with Wycliffe Bible translators. And then, when a translation was finished at that time, then you usually left that work and left that community. So, Marilyn moved on, and Shirley really felt that she needed to stay in Hauna for the literacy program and to continue to keep that literacy program going. So, in order for her to stay in Hauna, she had to transition from Wycliffe Bible Translators to Kids Alive International, which was based out of Valparaiso, Indiana at that time. Now, Marilyn stayed with Wycliffe Bible Translators until 2002, and then in 2003, she, along with Topher Philgreen, created Laszlo Mission League. Now, in 2017, Kids Alive felt like it wasn't a really good fit with their organization and Hauna. And so they contacted Laszlo Mission League and asked if they would take on Hauna and the East Sepik River region. And we thought it was a great fit. So then Shirley came over and joined Laszlo Mission League. Now, we have three core ministries that we're really focused on, and those are evangelism and spiritual growth, medical, and education. Now, this plane is a Kodiak, and this is the plane that we flew into Hauna. We're on the Hauna airstrip, and this is our last trip in 2013 with Marilyn. Now, this is a boat from our trip in March of 25, and we could not land in Hauna because the airstrip was closed. So we had to land in Ambunti, which is a 3.5 hour river ride in a boat such as this, or that was the boat that we're on for 3.5 hours. Now, this is the Hauna airstrip, and in 2020, there were so many airplane accidents in rural airstrips that MAF, which is Mission Aviation Fellowship, closed a lot of the rural airstrips in Papua New Guinea, and Hauna Village was one of them. And one of the things that came back early on was that the soils in Hauna were not good. So when our team arrived in March, we met Johnny Watson, who is a geological engineer for MAF, and he had a different instrument, and he was able to test the soils for all of the airstrip, and the soils were great, which was fantastic news for us. So our number one goal in 2025 is to get the airstrip reopened. So we're in the middle of the jungles of Papua New Guinea. You can't bring in big, heavy equipment. So that whole airstrip was going to have to be cut by hand with a machete, or what they would call a bush knife. And so what we did was we paid all four clans the same amount of money. And what they just finished in October of 2025 is all four clans, including the men, women, and children. They cut the entire airstrip by hand. They then burned all the materials. They then raked them and then removed the materials from the airstrip. The goal is that in November of 25, we will be able to fly into Hauna Village directly and not have to go to Ambunti. Now, I love this is that, when you look at Jesus's ministry, and throughout his ministry, Jesus didn't just preach. He healed the sick and he restored the broken. At Laszlo Mission League, we follow that same model. We care for both the body and the soul. There is a lot of sickness in Hauna. The sickness that was there in 1968, a lot of that sickness is still there today in 2025 and will be there beyond that 2025. Here are some of the illnesses that we're still seeing in Hauna. malaria, and it is the leading cause of death. Tuberculosis. It's the treatments for tuberculosis are going backwards, and so it could be because the medication's no longer working. There's viral hepatitis B, there's waterborne diseases, there's typhoid fever, there's dysentery, there's bacterial skin infections, and there's blindness due to cataracts. In addition to those, then there's a rising level of diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. This man to the left is Pastor Toby, and Pastor Toby is one of the original translators. He got a sore on his leg within the last couple of years that turned into a tropical ulcer that led to him having an amputation. And that's just how quickly things can get out of control. So this is the Hauna Medical Center, a great history. This is a three-level medical center that was built starting in the late 80s and I think finished in the early 90s, and it was built by teenagers from the United States. There's an organization called Teen Missions International, and they send teenagers all over the world to do projects. Well, several teams came to Hauna over the years to build the hospital. So, because of the harsh conditions, and that's weather, but also termites, the medical center needs to be updated and repaired. There's a lot of repairs that are needed. So you have a couple of things happening. You have water that's gotten in. The roof is solid, but that third floor is not protected from the rain, so those rains are coming in. We have a lot of soft materials that are getting eaten up by termites. We know that one of the things that we have to do is we no longer have an electrician in Hauna. That person passed away, so we're going to have somebody relook at the electrical. In addition to that, we lost our plumber also passed away, so we're going to have to really look at the plumbing and find a new person to train in plumbing, as well as find a new person to train in electrical work. So this is the second floor. So there's three floors. The second floor received a grant from the government, and this floor has been redone, and all the materials are termite resistant, which is what we have to do on floors 1 and 3. These are our medical staff. So Catherine and Lorelei are considered like CNAs, and they're both from Hauna. And then Jerry was supposed to be our security guard, but they need so much help medically that a lot of times he has to jump in and help. Now, the person to the far right is Lily and Kenny. Her husband, Sam, and her are part of the Laszlo Mission League staff in Papua New Guinea, and they go into Hauna to do the administration. And Lillian is a registered nurse, so she does a lot with medical. So Dr. Carter and his wife Anne were instrumental in bringing U.S. medical teams for 10 years to Hauna Village. He would bring in surgeons, an anesthesiologist, a regular doctor, or a general doctor, and nurses, and a lab technician, and electrician, and they would do a lot of medical treatment. And our goal is to get this medical center back to the level that it needs to be. We need to make sure we have another surgical room, and then we want to bring back those U.S. medical teams. Dr. Carter passed away, and so we do need to find either a new doctor that will take the lead on this or a medical professional that would help put this together. But it is it is a priority of ours is to get those U.S. medical teams back to Hauna. Now, we are estimating that the renovation will cost about $125,000. And, when you compare that to a U.S. hospital, that's the cost of maybe one hospital room to construct one hospital room in a hospital in the U.S. and equip it. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a comparison. Now, one of the things, education is another part of our core ministry. And we have two things that we're looking at. The first one is early childhood education. And this is important to get kids ready to go when they go into the government school. If you look at that, the materials on the wall, I was stunned to see that our teaching materials are in such bad condition. Well, I found out through Shirley's daughter, Lisa, that we can no longer ship supplies from the United States. And so one of the things that's going to be important is for me when I go to Hauna is to stop in Australia and try to get suppliers to be able to ship from Australia to Papua New Guinea. Now, when Shirley was there and she retired in 2020, Shirley was a certified teacher that had a certified high school program in Papua New Guinea. So when we found out that the government was now going to be doing grades, I think 1 through high school, that meant we don't have to have a high school any longer. And that's so we said, okay, we don't have to do high school. And the people in Hauna said, we need a tutoring program for our high school students. There are students that are struggling, or there are students that left high school but want to go back and they need tutoring. So we don't have a tutoring program in place right now, but that is on our list to create, and we have to kind of figure out what the logistics are going to be on that. Now, Hauna Christian Church is still going strong. One of the things we would love to do is find 2 to 3 churches in the United States to adopt the Hauna Christian Church. And what we're looking at is we don't want this to just be a financial relationship, right? That financials will be part of it, but we really want these churches to come alongside our pastors. We want them to help out with creating Sunday school for all ages, from kids all the way to older adults. We want there to be a youth pastor in Hauna, and we want the U.S. churches to help train those youth pastor or pastors. And so we just really want these churches to be actively involved and send people from the United States to Hauna. It could also be sending over worship people. So we are excited about this. And so if you know of a church that you think would be a great church to adopt Hauna, we are very interested. Now, there is a church out of Nebraska who has been running, helping run the Bible school. And what this does is it trains the current Hauna pastors with additional training, but it also trains pastors in other villages. So our goal is to do evangelism and to reach the villages that are surrounding Hauna. But we know in order to keep that discipleship going in those villages, they need a pastor. And so we are recruiting people to be pastors and as well as training them. So the Bible was translated, and normally a translation should be revised, maybe every 5 years. So the Sepik translation has not been revised since Marilyn completed this in 1990. And so this is a project that we are hoping that we can, you know, get the revision done. I know that one of the original translators was working on the revisions, and unfortunately he passed away. So we want to take where he left off and continue on with that project, and hoping and praying that we know if we should work with Wycliffe. We're not sure, how to tackle that project. So this bridge is a suspension bridge, and it runs from the house, and that house in the front is, we call it the Hauna Hilton, and that's where Marilyn and Shirley lived, and a lot goes on in that house. Um, to get to the other side of that river is the clan, and on that other side of the river is where the hospital is located. So when you have U.S. medical teams here, the only way you can get from one side of the river to the other is through a canoe or a boat, which is not very convenient. So this bridge is critical to get from the house over to the medical center. And this is what the bridge looks like today. So what happened is the people took off the walking planks, and they took them off because these anchor blocks are not secure. So our goal is that bridge is connected to that hospital. And so another project that is critical is getting this bridge repaired. And we would love to work with some kind of civil engineer that would go over there and help us kind of understand what we need to do. Now this is where we stop from the normal presentation, and this is a couple of slides we're going to go into that is specifically for you guys to give you a little bit more glimpse of Laszlo Mission League. So, one of the things any organization has to have is they have to have a way to collect information about their contacts, keep information in there about their contacts, have a place where you put your budget and track some of your projects and so forth. And a lot of that we do in Excel and in Google, but it's not very sophisticated and it's clumsy. And so we are hoping to be able to transition into a professional database, and Kintone is the database that we're looking at. Unfortunately, today, to get software, you have to have a subscription. It's not like you just pay and then you're done. They are subscription based. So this is one of the tools that we're looking at to kind of help us as Laszlo Mission League grows. We're excited because we gave out our first scholarship in May of 25. This is Raquel. She is from Ecuador. She is a linguistic. She's going to be a linguistic graduate in December of 25 from Moody Bible Institute, which is located in Chicago. After she completes her degree, she will be serving as a missionary in Ecuador. However, she is open to wherever God wants to call her. So she feels called to go to Ecuador, um, but she also knows she may be called to go somewhere else, and she's very open to God's leading. We are very excited because when we opened up the application process, we had 10 qualified students apply. So we're really excited in terms of what the future looks like in terms of global missions. So, Laszlo Mission League got a new logo in 2025, but there is another organization called Sepik Christian Ministries. And this is the not-for-profit in Papua New Guinea and in Hauna Village. So Sepik Christian Ministries falls under Laszlo Mission League, and this is an organization that is based out of Hauna. The people on the board are from the four clans in Hauna Village, and it's they are able to go after grants, but they are making the decisions about the ministry, about everything that we're doing in Hauna that goes through the Sepik Christian Ministries, and nobody from the Laszlo Mission League staff or board is on this board. So it's very focused on the people of Hauna. One of the things when I started at Laszlo Mission League, people would ask us like, "Hey, can you give me some information about Laszlo Mission League?" And we have our website, but we had no other information. We had no business cards. We didn't have a brochure. So we are putting together a printed brochure so we can hand to people so they can get a quick overlook of what Laszlo Mission League is about. And then we're also going to have a digital version of that brochure as well. We do have a Facebook presence. We only have 41 followers. So if you are on Facebook, I would encourage you to follow Laszlo Mission League because we are going to be communicating more via this platform. One of the things that we hope to launch in 2026 is the Grub Worm Challenge. This is really about getting into churches and giving this presentation and talking about Laszlo Mission League and the great work we're doing in Hauna Village. But we want to do something that is multi-generational and that's going to get younger generations excited about global missions. And so one of our board members came up with this idea that she hosted at the church that Shirley used to go to, the church that I go to. And she just did it as a fun event to get the word out about Laszlo Mission League. So how it goes is college age students and high school students. They go to an event and everybody's invited and we have dinner. You hear a presentation, you hear this presentation, and then at the end of the presentation, the adults bid on how many grub worms the high school kids and the college kids can consume in a short period of time. And eating grub worms are safe. They're good protein, and you can buy the kind that you get in Hauna are from Thailand. And so this is a great way to raise money for Laszlo Mission League, to educate people about Laszlo Mission League and Hauna, and to have a fun event that all generations can be a part of. So we're excited about this, and we're again hoping to launch this in 2026. These are some fun things that we put together, like I Survived the Grub Challenge, and then, stickers and so forth. So we're trying to think of fun things that can, again, involve people of all ages. So one of the things that's very important to me, I'm new with Laszlo Mission League, and just would love to know why you're excited about the work that our organization is doing in Hauna and the Hauna region. And so, would love to hear your feedback on how you think we're doing. Are we communicating well? Are there things that we should be doing differently? Do you like our newsletters? Do you not like our newsletters? We'd just love to know more about your story and how you're connected to Laszlo Mission League. So, at any point, you have my information. And it'll be my cell phone, it'll be my email, and so forth. So feel free to contact me at any time. So this goes back to the normal presentation. So we do have a website. We do know it's dated and we know that it needs to be updated. This is not a small project and we want to do a really good job with the new update. And so just wanted to let you know we are aware that updates are needed. What we're doing right now is really focusing on the new website. And so we're not putting a lot of effort into this. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that we know that we do need to do some updates, but we're going to kind of put those on hold so we can focus on the new website. A lot of people don't know that there is a book that is called Mission Possible. And this is a book about the work in Hauna and about Marilyn specifically. So if you've never read this book, I would encourage you to read it. It's a great book. There's two books that were written about her work, but this is the newest one, and you can get that on our website. But again, great read. It's a great story. I think you would enjoy it. We also have a YouTube channel. There were three movies that were created regarding the work in Hauna Village. This Mountain of Light, which is the very first film that was created, and it was done in the moment. There's no recreation. What you see is what happened during that time of filming. There's Come By Here, which has a very powerful ending, and then there's Return to Hauna. All of these films are available for free on our YouTube channel. There is a playlist, and that playlist is all three films are together so you can easily find them, and it's called Hauna Trilogy, the films that told the story. So I would encourage you to go to our YouTube channel. And here is that's the playlist I was talking about that has them in order, and you would want to watch them in the order as they are listed. That QR code will take you directly to that page. Now, people kind of wonder, how are we funded? Well, when Marilyn and Shirley were both with Wycliffe Bible Translators and then with Kids Alive for Shirley, those are large organizations. And so when you're a missionary under those organizations, you have to raise your own individual support. And that's what Marilyn and Shirley had to do in order to work on the mission field. Today we have a Laszlo Mission League is much smaller, and so the money we raise goes to the organization, and that pays for the staff, that pays for everything we're doing in Hauna. Anything that we're doing for Laszlo Mission League comes from that support. Now, support comes in three different ways. There is monthly support. There are people that give a one-time gift, a two-time gift, and then there's people that will just support a specific project, right? Maybe they're excited about the medical center and they'll just support that project. So those kind of give you an idea of the different ways that we are supported. We're supported by individuals as well as churches. The monthly support is important because that helps sustain us, from month to month. Now, when I started with Laszlo Mission League, which was just in January of 2025, I didn't know that funding for global missions within the United States has started to decline. And the reason for that, there's multiple things that are happening. One, a lot of churches are focusing inward. They're funding their own programs and they're funding programs within the community, which is fantastic. The other thing that's happening is that churches are not talking about international missions on the Sunday morning platform. And so you're having generations of people that are not learning about international missions. And so those are two things that are that are definitely concerning. And when I look at this slide and I think of the Great Commission that Jesus talked about, that therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. When Jesus gave that commission, he didn't say, oh, by the way, when you get to the 21st century, this is time stamped and it expires. You don't have to worry about the Great Commission in 2025 and beyond. He didn't say that. The Great Commission is just as important today as it was when Jesus spoke those words. And so church programs are important. Doing programs in the community are important, but my prayer is that churches will also start to understand that that third component of international missions are just as important, not only for Laszlo Mission League, but for global missions all over the world. You know, I think about Marilyn and Shirley, and I think that if today's conditions were like this in the 1968 and 1979 when they became missionaries, would they have made it to the mission field? Because there are missionaries that are not making it to the mission field because they don't have the support. And can you just imagine if Marilyn and Shirley didn't go to Hauna and the people in that region that were saved because they brought the light? But it goes further. Because of the movies and the books, there are missionaries all over the world that heard the story of Marilyn and Shirley and Hauna. And there's missionaries practicing and spreading the gospel because of them. And you think about all the people that are in heaven because of all the work that missionaries are doing. So it is vital. And so hopefully we'll see the trend start to turn around in this area.
It's all the spirits in the jungle. And when somebody gets sick, and they will be calling on this spirit to become demon possessed, whatever that spirit is, so that they would have that power to heal. And I don't know, it must be kind of painful when that spirit just takes control of that man because he lets out a yell. Oh! Well, can you imagine what we're feeling? We are right in the center of the village on that hill, and all 54 houses surround us, and this is what we're hearing. And I said, you know, Judy, now I understand. Now I understand when Jesus said, you're the light of the world. Because this is darkness, like I have never felt darkness. Because anybody that doesn't know about Jesus is in darkness. And I said, well, Judy, we're the light. I remember the day when the canoe was coming upriver with its boxes of Bibles. When that canoe came in with all these Bibles, they all started to shout, the Word of God has arrived! The Word of God has arrived! The Word, they just kept shouting it. Wow. What an incredible moment that was. Now I know what it took to get this done. Malaria, typhoid fever, hepatitis, trichinosis. But you know what? I would do it again in a heartbeat. Nobody can destroy the Word of God. This is an eternal investment. And there before me was a great multitude that no man could count. From every tribe, from every nation, from every people, from every country, and from every language. And God has chosen people like you and me, just common, ordinary people like you and me, to reach the world.
You know, when I read Ephesians 6 through 11 through 12, and you read that, and it's like Paul is like, do you understand? Do you understand that the battles that we are fighting are not flesh and blood, but we're against the spiritual forces? And I believe that if Laszlo Mission League pulls out of Hauna and that region, that in one generation, the light of Christ could be extinguished. And I think of the work that Marilyn and Shirley did and the sacrifices that they made in bringing the light of Christ to Hauna. The torch has been passed, and we have big shoes to fill, and this is the team that is working in Laszlo Mission League and in Hauna Village and that region. So in January of 2026, I will be transitioning to the CEO position, and Topher will be transitioning to the Chief Operations Officer. Topher is the one that started Laszlo Mission League in 2003 and will be actively involved. And then there's Courtney Grass, who is our Director of Administration, and that's the U.S. staff. Currently, we are part-time, but I'm the one that kind of is doing a lot of kind of the day-to-day stuff. And then you look at our Papua New Guinea staff of Sam Kenny, who is our Director of Operations, and his wife Lillian Kenny, who is a registered nurse and oversees our medical. They are phenomenal. And so this team is an incredible team that is committed to the work in Hauna and committed to keeping the light of Christ going in Hauna. So this last video is just a photo collection of Hauna from the early days to a little bit of 2013, but majority of the trip of March 2025. The music is called My Tribute, and Marilyn was recorded 4 record albums with her singing partner Beverly Entz, and so this is their version of My Tribute.
For the things you have done for me, being so undeserved, yet you give to prove your love for me. The voices of a million angels could not express my gratitude. Be pleasing, Lord, to thee, and should there be any praise, let it go to Calvary. With his blood he has saved me, with his heart he has raised me. To God be the glory for the things he has done. Just let me live my life. Let it be pleasing, Lord, to thee. And should there be any praise, let it go to Calvary. With his blood he has saved me.
Thank you so much for taking time to watch this presentation. You know, I had no idea that one day I'd be working for Laszlo Mission League and helping shine God's light on the Sepik River. You know, that light started nearly 60 years ago with my aunts, and it is an honor to be able to keep it moving forward. And I do have one important request. Can you keep all of us at Laszlo Mission League in your prayers as we continue to work hard on behalf of Hauna and that region? Thank you so much.